when I started singing "My Name's Blurryface" and I Care What You Think. I remember it was like that classic, like he's in the control room, he presses the talk button, he's like, what does that mean? And I was like,
21 Pilots, a group that effectively redefined the conventional ideas of what a music band is supposed to look like, all while rocking your world in the most unexplainable way and with a brand of music that has never been heard before. Now, they reign supreme as the undisputed kings of alternative pop by topping Billboard's one hit after the other. But believe it or not, before the fame and the Grammy Award wins, and most definitely before they revolutionized pop music with their unique and sometimes chaotic little bit of everything sound, 21 Pilots used to be just a couple of young lads performing in pubs and handing out free concert tickets at parking lots. Two music misfits who rejected the industry, defied the odds, and still came out on top of the world. So, what changed? Did they really just catch a lucky break? And most importantly, how did this piano player and his drummer friend go from begging to perform for free in bars to shutting down world stages and permanently topping music charts? Well, get ready to be blown away by the unscripted rise to fame of 21 Pilots and how they built a global fan base without playing by the rules. This is Josh. Sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Of course, the industry has witnessed its fair share of grass to grace fairy tales. However, not many can rival the story of 21 Pilots. But to fully understand how 21 Pilots went from playing in empty rooms to selling out arenas, we have to take a look at how it all started for them. As expected, the origin of 21 Pilots has a whole lot more to do with Tyler Joseph than his partner Josh Dunn, but it's still not as straightforward as you might think.
I heard the story that you're really good at basketball. True or false?
I don't remember, but I used to be all about it. It used to be my identity as a little kid.
How little?
Pretty little. But then I kept playing after I was little, too.
You see, Tyler, who is the main character in the band, almost never pursued a career in music. As a kid, Tyler was more inclined to sports and even got a scholarship to play basketball at Otterbein University.
Yeah, my parents didn't really see me being an international pop star now. But to be able to go to college, the best way of doing that is getting some sort of scholarship, which of course it wasn't going to come from academics. So what about athletics? So a lot of the plan was to get a scholarship playing basketball, and that was actually the case, and I decided to play the piano instead.
However, after watching a songwriter perform at a street club, Tyler was so impressed that he made up his mind to play the piano instead and pursue a career in music. And that was the first piece of the 21 Pilots puzzle. The other piece, however, was nowhere to be found, not even when the band first formed in 2009. As a matter of fact, it was three high school friends from Columbus, Ohio, Tyler Joseph, Nick Thomas, who teamed up to merge their music skills and love for the art together. The initial dynamic was pretty much band-like. Tyler was the vocalist, who also played the piano and ukulele. Nick was on bass, while Chris played the drums, which he sometimes mixed with percussion. Oh, and for their name, well, that's a pretty unusual one as well. And again, it was all Tyler. He claimed it was a reference to Arthur Miller's play All My Sons, which tells the story of a man who caused the death of 21 pilots during World War II by knowingly sending them faulty aeroplane parts. According to the vocalist, they picked the name so it could be a constant reminder to always do things the right way, rather than the profitable way. And folks, this would end up being a very large part of what this band became all about. But hey, let's not get ahead of ourselves now, because once again, what followed wasn't as promising as you'd have expected. See, despite releasing their first album, 21 Pilots, on December 29th, 2009, despite aggressively touring their hometown, and despite gathering a small local following for their band, something just seemed to be missing at the time. That and the fact that both Nick and Chris didn't want to continue seeing the band reach a delicate point of no return before even taking off. The issue? Well, in what felt like a quick 1-2 punch for Tyler, both Chris and Nick announced on the band's Facebook page that they were leaving for personal reasons. Now, one member of the band leaving would have been a manageable situation, but two? That's effectively an end-of-the-line move. Or at least, that's where it was heading, if not for Tyler's resilient spirit and the timely recruitment of drummer Josh Dunn, who Tyler had initially witnessed at a show.
Josh Dunn is a drummer, and all-around drummer. Also, the nicest guy I've ever met in my entire life.
Obviously, Josh had come in to replace Chris, even though his skills would eventually turn out to be much more impressive. However, Tyler's reluctance to bring in a new bass player was what raised eyebrows the most. Were they really about to become a two-man band? You bet they were. Ultimately, it even helped them create a chemistry like never before.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Tyler.
Yeah, cool, Josh.
Your name's Cool Josh?
Yeah, cool, Josh.
This was history in the making, but it wasn't to be known yet because what followed was a peculiar journey from grass to grace, and it all happened in the most unlikely of ways. These images were all anyone could talk about for weeks after the 2017 Grammy Awards ceremony. And rightly so. I mean, it's really not every day you get to see someone stripped to their underwear in front of an audience as prestigious as the Grammys. But then, this wasn't some sour attempt at showing off or anything of the likes. In fact, it became one of the most wholesome things we witnessed. You know, more like a mama we made it kind of moment. The duo even confirmed that this was a promise they jokingly made to themselves all those years before the fame, that if they eventually won a Grammy, they'd receive it in their underwear.
He said, yeah, who's hanging there? I said, it's a couple of my roommates just coming to watch the Grammys with us. And as we were watching, we noticed that every single one of us was in our underwear. And seriously, Josh turned to me, and we were no one at that time. He turned to me and he said, you know, if we ever go to the Grammys, if we ever win a Grammy, we should receive it just like this.
And here they were, holding those highly coveted golden trophies as evidence of how far they've come, and in their underwears, no less. But don't mistake it, because this right here was the product of the grind era. All the work behind the scenes that no one saw. You see, 21 Pilots' rise to fame wasn't quick, and it wasn't suitable either. After Tyler Joseph and Josh Dunn teamed up in 2011, the years that followed were pure hustle in Columbus, Ohio. The duo even confirmed that their first gig was in a frat house, where some dude even threatened to pee on Josh's drums, and word on the street was that they barely got through one track before the cops showed up to shut everything down. Luckily, Ohio had lots of local venues, and the duo would resiliently try to perform in as many as possible. This was before they decided to release the band's second album, titled Regional at Best, which perfectly captured where the band was at the time in terms of popularity. Also, at this time, the band was still not signed to any record label, which means they had to self-release this album all by themselves.
The first record that Josh and I released was independently, and it was the self-titled record. And when I say independently, record 14 songs in your home studio, and then you just go, this is it. So I guess let's pay some company to print, the CDs and have them ready for, people to buy at shows. That was pretty much what that meant, to release something independently.
But that's not even the worst part. The worst part was that they had to distribute copies of this album by themselves yet again. No label, no budget, no problem. Or so it seemed. They even had to recruit Joseph's mom at some point, and she'll stand in parking lots or at the entrance of pubs to hawk tickets on show nights.
That song I wrote for her, I didn't even text her back. So during the encore, if we do an encore, I'm gonna go text my mom back, okay? Is that cool?
Oh, and around this period, Joseph would also come up with a genius plan to put on skeleton masks while performing to add a little bit of mystery to their performance. That, and the fact that each performance was always electric and attention-grabbing, it made them fairly popular, I'll bet among Ohio residents alone. But progress was progress all the same, and it became clear how far they've come when they sold out the Newport Music Hall in November of 2011. We're talking an audience of approximately 1,800 people for a band still finding its bearing. You see, if they needed any more proof that they were headed in the right direction, this was it. Right here. But even then, they were just getting started. Their next move? Well, they finally partnered with a record label in anticipation of their EP, 3 Songs, in 2012. Oh, and this was not just any record label. It was Fueled by Ramen, one of the fast-rising labels at the time and a subsidiary of Atlantic Records. Their EP, 3 Songs, which not so coincidentally featured only 3 tracks, brought them a little fame outside Ohio. And as expected, the band banked on this wave to drop their 3rd album, titled Vessel, in 2013. Now, if you're looking for the exact moment 21 Pilots stopped being regional at best, this album was it. With hits like Car Radio,
I ponder of something great. My lungs will fill and then deflate. They fill with fire, exhale desire. I know it's dire, my time today.
and Hold On to You leading the charge.
I'm taking over my body, back in control, no more shoddy. I bet a lot of me was lost, T's and crossing I's and dotted. I fought it a lot, and it seems a lot like flesh.
Fame was finally in their corridor, and they weren't about to let it ring twice. They'd proceed to tour the country in a bandwagon RV, bringing their unique music to the far ends. It was also around this time that Fall Out Boy announced that 21 Pilots, along with label colleagues Panic at the Disco, would be opening for them on their Save Rock and Roll tour. The boys from Columbus, Ohio, had come this far purely on their grind and pure belief, and nothing was gonna stop them now. Or was there? Tyler and his homie Josh may be world beaters today, but the grind era told a different story, one of consistency and internet dominance, and that's how they acquired initial success. So, the year was 2011. And the world was still learning the full potential of the internet. But this duo, well, let's just say they cracked the code and were ahead of their time. Thanks to their savvy use of the internet and its most influential features like hashtags and social media trends, they managed to gather a healthy amount of followers online that also translated to real-time fans.
You told me that Chile could put on a show. Tell me something I don't know, my friends.
They may have been too weird for the industry, but they were perfect for the internet. And with that, they managed to build an entire empire without playing by the rules or even as much as seeking permission from anybody. They would eventually turn into a movement, especially among local fans, and their gospel would begin to spread far and wide thanks to the influence of YouTube, Tumblr, and word of mouth. But little did we know that the real Skeleton Clique was still about to come.
Every day can be a struggle sometimes, but I have their music and I know that other people are going through what I'm going through. And it just means the world to be able to go to a concert with all your friends and just feel truly happy just to be there.
Talk about fan bases, and 21 Pilots boasts what's one of the strongest communities you'll find out there.
To our fans, I guess it goes without saying we wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. I'm always trying to find different ways of saying that because I feel like it feels redundant and, I don't know, oversaturated and not exactly communicating. Or maybe it is exactly what we're trying to say, but it's just said a lot.
They're called the Skeleton Clique. But hold on, because there's actually a reason for this. Remember the band's earlier days when they adopted rather interesting costumes? Well, it turns out it resonated with the fans so much that they'll sometimes pull up dressed in the same manner. But you know what makes the Skeleton Clique different? It's the camaraderie they share between themselves and diehard support they have for their faves.
Just about ready to give up. They kind of give me that little push I need to keep going and inspire me to just keep trucking along and doing my thing.
They remind everybody that it's okay to feel things, it's okay to be afraid, because there's always, always hope.
So the term Skeleton Clique wasn't just a brand, but an identity. From the very beginning, these fans weren't just fans, they're more like a cult movement, with a connection that runs deeper than music. They'd usually show up to concerts in skeleton hoodies, memorize lyrics, and sing along to Tyler and Josh's music. See that connection? You don't buy that, you build it. And theirs is a result of years upon years of music and lyrics that speak to people on a personal level. And thanks to the wide reach of the internet, the Skeleton Clique already ran so wide, like a syndicate, even before 21 Pilots became global. Tell you what, with a fan base as widespread and dedicated as this, the industry had no option than to oblige and put 21 Pilots on the world map where they belong. But when true fame found them, it wasn't just because of the fans, but also because of their unique sound. You may not have been able to define it, but it hits you all the same and leaves you feeling rhythm long after.
I play music, so we have a show tonight. Very cool. What kind of music do you play? I don't know, it's hard to explain.
When 21 Pilots' music eventually went global, it was on those sounds you just couldn't help but pay attention to, if not for anything, for the sound itself. See, even while they were shutting down local pubs and making waves in Columbus, there was something quite different about their sound, and you could tell immediately.
Down in the we'll sing.
See, while traditional bands find their favorite genre and stick to it, 21 Pilots, well, you could say they just didn't have a favorite to begin with. So, what are they really about? Well, that's the thing, because how do you explain going from this,
'Cause if I'm feeling someone stepping towards you, can't describe just what I'm feeling,
to this, and then to this,
vision is taking my vision, my crime is my sentence, repentance, she's taking commission, is taking the toll on myself, I'm screaming submission, I don't know if I'm dying.
all in one stretch. Odd, right? Well, that oddity is what they're all about, or at least that's what their music depicts, and that's the twist, because that weirdness is actually what makes them feel special. Oh, and by the way, we're not talking about subtle shifts between similar genres. We're talking full-on genre bending that merges alternative rock with fast rap or piano ballads with electric beats? Man, it just doesn't make sense. But guess what? It rocked all the same. In fact, right from the days of regional at best, you couldn't help but catch the fever once you're exposed to their always high energy performances. But here's the interesting part people don't talk about as much. While their unique sound and high tempo renditions get a lot of the attention, there's something about their lyrics that cuts deeper than the noise itself.
I know for me personally, it's hard for me not to write from a personal experience. And so the character of Clancy in a lot of ways embodies me. I think that's understood at this point. And sometimes it's nice to, I guess, trick your brain to think that you're writing about someone else when really you're dipping into, personal stuff.
It's like a quiet confession buried deep inside the chaos. As expected, the majority of the songwriting task falls to Tyler, and according to the man, they are mostly born out of personal experiences. You just can't help but connect to it too, especially since it often feels like he's having a quiet and deep conversation with you.
But then, because people resonated with it early on.
Songs like Car Radio, where he says, "Sometimes quiet is violent. I find it hard to hide it. My pride is no longer inside. It's on my sleeve, my skin will scream," reminded me of who I killed inside my dream. I hate this car that I'm driving. There's no hiding from me. I'm forced to deal with what I feel. There is no distinction to mask what is real. These are sounds that reach into your soul and touch you on a personal level. Lyrics that address mental health struggles and have fans relating to every line. Right from the very beginning, you could tell from their unique sound that this band had what it took to conquer the world, and that's exactly what they'd go on to do. It is true that fame always takes its price, and for 21 Pilots, the price was the grind.
Hey, wouldn't it be great, if we could just lay down and wake up in slow.
See, right up until their third album, Vessel, the band had pretty much defiled the industry and gone about things their own way. By refusing to be restricted to a single genre, by building a cult fan base before even hitting the mainstream, and by sticking to meaning rather than pursuing trends, 21 Pilots had all but given the industry the middle finger.
21 Pilots at the MTV 2014 Movie Awards!
But then came the year 2012, when they signed the record label Fueled by Ramen, and a lot of fans just didn't know what to expect. Could this be a turning point from the way they had always operated as a band? Are they finally about to conform? And more importantly, what's this got to do with the brand of music we've all come to love? Well, this was a turning point, but it had nothing to do with their identity. Now, as a label that had already established names like Fall Out Boy, Paramore, Panic at the Disco, and Fun, the future already looked brighter for the boys from Columbus, and the album Vessel had all the signs. But little did anyone know that true fame was about to find them in the shape of their next album. The build-up to 2014 was everything for 21 Pilots, as it saw them tour the country endlessly, making more disciples with each city they conquered. They also had a stint where they opened for bigger artists like Fall Out Boy, and ended up stealing the entire show.
Come closer.
But as their fans grew, so did the anticipation for their fourth studio album, and when it eventually dropped, it was a banger. Blurryface, as they called it, was about to make the world stand still. But even more relevant was the fact that 21 Pilots was about to complete their transition from local Ohio shows to complete world dominance. No doubt, 2014 was a very good year for 21 Pilots, as they gained massive recognition and played in front of record audiences during their Quiet is Violent tour. However, it would eventually become a fleeting memory compared to what was about to unfold in 2015, the year that changed their lives forever. It was on the 17th of May, 2015, that the album Blurryface was released. Now, even though strange events like leaked singles prior to the release already had fans talking, all the noise would automatically be erased once this album hit the mainstream. One album, 14 tracks, and a stamp of excellence. Blurryface was something special, something even more unique than the sounds fans had come to expect from the band. It featured an alternate personality, or Tyler's fictional alter ego, if you may, and it was perfectly depicted by this version of him in the hit track Stressed Out. The plot was simple. Blurryface was the antagonist springing up vulnerabilities like doubt and anxiety, while the real Tyler tried to push them back with tracks like Lane Boy and Fairly Local. The album Blurryface was an instant hit, gaining commercial success and popularity among fans. It would even make history as the first album in the digital era to have each track earn the gold certification by the RIAA, with Stressed Out topping it all with a 13 times platinum status. Other tracks like Ride, Tear in My Heart, Heavy Dirty Soul, Lame Boy, and Fairly Local will also come out blazing, with each earning single or multiple platinum status. Simply put, the album was everywhere, and it was what everyone cared to listen to at the time. As a result, it didn't waste any time to hit #1 on the Billboard 200 chart, with Stressed Out reaching as high as #2 on the Hot 100. But this was just the beginning. The boys from Columbus, Ohio had officially conquered the world, and they brought their trademark goofiness with them. The whole world was now their platform, and you couldn't go anywhere in late 2015 without hearing their voice on stereos or witnessing one of their electric live shows. Yeah, they literally owned the year, and 2016 wasn't any much different. In June of 2016, the band would release the song Heathens as the main soundtrack for the motion picture Suicide Squad, and it also became a global hit. It would also promptly make it into the top 5 of the Billboard Hot 100, meaning 21 Pilots had multiple tracks in the top 5 at the same time at some point in 2016, with Heathens peaking at number 2 and Ride at number 5. The band ended 2016 on a high, performing in the American Music Awards and also taking home the awards for Favorite Alternative Artist and Favorite Pop/Rock Band.
We're not really used to this type of stuff, so thanks for bearing with us. There's a lot of people we want to thank, not just for this award, but for everything that's happened for us this past year. But just in case this is the last award we ever win, we want to thank one particular group. I know a lot of artists get up here and they talk about their fans, but we really want to cut through the noise and say to our fans, you guys changed our lives.
However, the crowning moment for them, and for Blurryface, would come in 2017 when they won the Grammy Award for Best Pop Group Performance, with their hit of the decade, Stressed Out, and produced that stunningly memorable moment. All the struggles, the uncertainty, and the near misses had all led to this moment of breakthrough, and they couldn't have marked it any better.
I'm guilty of listening to our music. It's not cool, but it's not cool to say that.
I think that's a fine and acceptable answer.
I listen to our own music, like, in my car.
Make no mistake, 21 Pilots' rise to fame may have had millions spellbound, but it certainly didn't go unnoticed by critics. But the more the critics tried to make themselves heard, the more ridiculous they sound, thanks to the adaptability of Tyler and his mate. See, while these critics tend to lean towards the notion that 21 Pilots' music doesn't cut deep enough, there's really no answer to where exactly they're supposed to cut deep into. Their genre-bending ability means they're not boxed to a specific style, and that just makes it hard to define them.
I wanted to break through that. I wanted to find the beauty in allowing imagination to destroy those two things.
I mean, we've seen them switch effortlessly between rap, rock, electronic, pop, and even reggae.
Now is the climax to the story that gives the demons and angels purpose. They fly around while we are walking.
Now, this type of freedom is what makes them almost impossible to box in. That and the fact that critics usually make judgments based on patterns and predictability. But while the lack of a defined genre can also have its disadvantages, Tyler's emotion-based lyrics offer an exception. If you need to scream, he's something of a rock star. If you want to connect on a deeper note, he can easily switch to piano ballad.
If I'm feeling someone stepping towards you, can't describe just what I'm feeling for you.
But if you're in the mood for some good old rhythm, then you can count on his rap skills. This kind of versatility is often hard to come by, especially in an industry that forces artists to define their art. But that unpredictability is also what keeps them afloat despite going against the tides. That in itself is their art. Today, 21 Pilots has conquered the music industry, and then some, with their authenticity that never compromised. But what's even more impressive is the fact that they brought their sweet little circus-style performance to the live shows. You see them perform, and you can easily picture that duo that wowed audiences as upcomers in bars and pubs around Columbus. Talk about never forgetting the days of humble beginnings, and this duo is your perfect example. Oh, And if any more conviction was needed, their decision to return home after conquering the world was it, because in June of 2017, they embarked on a 5-show tour back home called Tour de Columbus. This was their own little way of giving back to the community and the OG fans that made them, and boy was it wholesome. From Columbus, Ohio to the Grammy stage and back for a victory lap. Tell you what, this story could not have been written any better, but it sure as hell wasn't the end for 21 Pilots. But of course, it won't really be 21 Pilots if there wasn't a bit of mystery. So in 2018, they suddenly disappeared for a whole year. They'd, however, return stronger than they left, and even go on to release further albums. Trench in 2018, Scaled by Icy in 2021, Clancy in 2024, and Breach more recently in 2025, with tracks like Chlorine, and Shy Away, all going viral. They have since established themselves as one of the most influential bands of the last decade, with a fandom that never really dips. Say the name 21 Pilots anywhere today, or lead with any of their singles, and you'd be getting a nod of approval from members of the clique. That's how widespread the following is, and that's something you can't find anywhere else. So what makes their journey unique in the music industry? Well, it's not just one thing in particular, but a combination of factors: right decisions, timely releases, and a deep connection to the fans.
I'm gonna turn this pack up. It's over.
It's also in the way they never agreed to be shaped by the expectations of the industry, and also how they managed to anchor around mental health and the things that matter rather than chase aesthetics. See, in a world of fleeting trends and fake depths, this duo has found a way to bask timelessly with their undiluted sound, and that's what makes 21 Pilots most special. So next time you talk about greatness in the modern music scene, remember to take a bow for the band that refused the norm and still managed to reign supreme as the ultimate genre benders. This is the unscripted rise to fame of 21 Pilots, and you best believe it's one that can't be recreated anytime soon. This is Josh. Thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.